Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Captain Nicholas Bowman. This evening, we warmly welcome Colonel Hassan Amir, Maldives Defence Advisor to Australia. The delegation, representing the Royal Australian Navy, HMAS Cerberus, and Flight Lieutenant Richard Caesar Thwaites, retired, representing the Air Force Association. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
For those that are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and remained with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Kenneth Edwin Harold Bennett. Kenneth Bennett was born on the 15th of April 1922 in the Sydney suburb of Paddington. He was the eldest son of Harold and Ethel Bennett and had a younger brother named Selwyn. They lived in the Sydney suburb of Annandale. In his youth, Kenneth became an apprentice draftsman with an engineering firm in Waterloo. Kenneth Bennett was in the 4th year of his apprenticeship when he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 15th of August 1942 in Sydney. He began his training at Summers in Victoria and moved around to several other training schools across Australia before qualifying as a pilot on the 8th of June 1943. Bennett embarked for overseas service later that month. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 Royal Australian Air Force pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who joined squadrons based in Britain throughout the course of the war. He arrived in England in late 1943 and began further training on the 4-engine Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. He was then posted to number 61 Squadron of the Royal Air Force Bomber Command at Rochford in Essex. He was briefly posted to the newly raised number 189 Squadron Royal Air Force in November 1944, but his posting there was brief. He was assigned to number 463 Squadron, a Royal Australian Air Force squadron in Bomber Command just weeks later. Bennett took part in one of his first major sorties with 463 Squadron on the 6th of December 1944. Their target was Gießen, north of Frankfurt in Germany, where they were attacking the marshalling yards and the industrial centre. Shortly after reaching their target, Bennett's Lancaster was attacked by enemy aircraft. In an interview after the mission, he reflected on the attack, saying, "We had a good run-in over Gießen, but just as we bombed, we saw a twin-engine enemy aircraft coming at us head-on. It turned above us to attack another Lancaster, and our mid-upper gunner gave him a long burst. Most of us saw strikes in the fighter's port wing, and it dived away with pieces coming from it and with the engine on fire." All crew on Bennett's Lancaster made it safely back to base in England, and the overall mission was largely a success. Less than 2 weeks later, on the 17th of December 1944, Bennett was assigned as captain of a Lancaster bomber for a raid over Munich in Germany's south. On this night, Bennett's Lancaster included an extra crew member known as a second dickie, as it was custom for novice pilots to accompany an experienced crew before piloting their own first mission. They took off from their base at Wannington in Lincolnshire with 19 other aircraft. After takeoff, nothing was heard from Bennett or his crew, and they were failed to return to base. Bennett and his comrades were listed as missing until 1947, when an investigation reported that their plane had been shot down by enemy aircraft and they crashed into a field near the French village of Gros-Tile. The plane burst into flames on impact, causing the ammunition and bombs on board to explode. Villagers who came to their aid were forced to wait until the flames had subsided. The next day, villagers retrieved the remains of Bennett and his comrades from the wreckage and buried them in a communal grave, as they were unable to be individually identified. Kenneth Bennett was just 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Kenneth Edwin Harold Bennett, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.